Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I'm Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. 10 years ago, in September 2015, world leaders gathered at the United Nations and made an unprecedented commitment to leave no one behind and transform our world by adopting the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. 17 global goals were set to improve lives and safeguard the planet, with eradicating poverty seen as indispensable to sustainable development and shared prosperity. Since then, conflict, climate disruption, economic instability, and rising geopolitical tensions have placed the SDG promise under strain. Yet, there has been some progress. Poverty has declined in several regions, child mortality is down, access to electricity has expanded, and significant gains have been made against deadly diseases. According to the United Nations, over half of the world's population is now covered by some form of social protection. Child marriage, maternal and child mortality have declined remarkably. Women hold 27% of parliamentary seats globally, up from 22%. Access to electricity, clean cooking and internet connectivity has expanded dramatically. New HIV infections are down nearly 40% since 2010. Malaria prevention efforts have saved 12.7 million lives. Over 110 million more children are now in school, with the gender gap in education narrowing. Electricity now reaches 92% of the global population. Internet use has surged from 40% in 2015 to 68% in 2024. Also, local conservation efforts have doubled protection for vital ecosystems. But progress remains uneven and too slow to meet the SDGs by 2030. Only 35% of targets are on track or making modest gains. Nearly half are progressing too slowly and 18% are regressing. Over 800 million people still live in extreme poverty and hunger. Billions lack safe drinking water and sanitation. Women continue to shoulder 2.5 times more unpaid care work than men, and persons with disabilities remain underserved. Over 120 million people are now displaced, which is more than double the number in 2015. Climate records are being shattered, with CO2 levels at their highest in over 2 million years. So those were the global facts and figures. Talking about India now, which recently showcased its SDG journey through the 3rd Voluntary National Review at the UN High-Level Political Forum in New York. Prepared under NITI Aayog stewardship, the report highlights how India has transformed the SDGs into a national movement over the past decade and the significant gains made so far. So on the show today, we will explore the transformative measures India has highlighted, the challenges that still persist, and how we can match the ambition of the 2030 Agenda with the urgency and unity that it requires over the next 5 years. I'm delighted to welcome a stellar panel today. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Dr. Vibha Dhawan, Director General, the Energy and Resources Institute, TERI. Dr. Dhawan, always a pleasure to welcome you on Sansad TV. I'm also delighted to welcome Mr. Hemant Kumar Meena, Director, Sustainable Development Goals, NITI Aayog. Mr. Meena, welcome to the program. And our third guest today is Mr. Ankit Tori, Chief Sustainability Officer, Mahindra Group. Mr. Tori, glad to have you with us on this telecast as well. So I'm going to start with India's journey and progress. Mr. Meena, to you first. So in its 3rd Voluntary National Review, which was presented at the United Nations, India showcased its progress towards the SDGs made in the last 10 years. To begin with, tell us and our viewers, in what ways has India managed to turn the SDGs into a national movement?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me for the show. As you have already told that India has joined Agenda 2030 in 2015. And since then, India has made this commitment to fulfill the SDGs. There has been a consistent progress in India's achievement in the SDG. At the global level, there is one report, Global Sustainable Development Report, which has shown India has progressed consistently. The score of India has increased consistently over the years. And as part of this 3rd Voluntary National Review, India has showcased its progress over the last decade in the SDG front at in the United Nations. there are three major factors which are responsible for this progress. First is the digital. How India has leveraged digital public infrastructure for providing basic financial services, Aadhaar-enabled services to its population at scale. Second is the data. We have utilized data for evidence-based decision making and policy making, and which has helped us in development of the better policies, targeted interventions. And third is the last mile delivery. India has focused on the saturation of the schemes, last mile delivery of the scheme, so that no one is left behind. And the cumulative impact of this intervention is that during the last 9 years, over 25 crore people has escaped multidimensional poverty, which is a huge achievement for India. And for not only at the nation level, but the state also have shown reasonable progress in SDG front as measured by our SDG India Index. So in overall, India has progressed well, and we hope that we are consistently inching towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals 2030.
Sure. We will talk about the key indicators and the achievements made over the past decade in greater detail in the next round. But going across to Dr. Dhawan now for her perspective. Dr. Dhawan, you just heard about the national picture from Mr. Meena, who represents the NITI Aayog and which also presented that report at the United Nations. Now, Terry, we all know, has been over the years deeply involved in helping the states, also the local bodies, in mainstreaming the SDGs and working towards its progress. From your perspective, what are the most significant gains that India has made on the sustainability front in the last 10 years?
Yeah, thank you, Tina, for your question. And really speaking, if I look into the goals which were set up by SDGs, we are lagging behind a bit. And one of the main reasons for that, or we are at least putting it that way, that due to COVID, everything has been derailed. But then looking at how India has performed, we have performed very well compared to many other countries. One thing which we should be very proud of, and that is that as an economy, we are one of the fastest growing economies. And what we are ensuring is that we grow, but that growth has to be sustainable. We are looking at climate change. At the same time, we are looking at that it should not have negative impact on the environment, because otherwise your development is going to be counterproductive. And therefore, we are also looking at that the nexus between climate change, poverty, inequality, they are interconnected, and that demands holistic cross-sectoral solutions. And that definitely asks for strengthening multilateral cooperation, which is required more today than earlier. Now, what we look at, as Hemant also mentioned, we have done very well, but few states have performed better than others. Okay. Let's look at a reduction in emission intensity. India achieved 36% reduction in emission intensity between 2005 and 2020, progressing towards its climate goal. And let's also give credit to renewable energy, which and we are meeting our targets much ahead of the date for which the target setting has been done. Let's also look at that no one is left behind. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Let's look at availability of water. All villages have been electrified, and all clean cooking solutions like Ujjwala Yojana. Let's look at the other sectoral gains. It basically, if we look at declines in maternal infant mortality, increased school enrollment, which is very essential, expansion of health cover, the Ayushman Bharat, improving access to drinking water, because now you have tap water in every house. So all those things in a way give you confidence that we are on the track. We are doing much better than many other economies. And we are also reviewing at the same time our progress, and most of the state governments, they are also looking into green procurement, green budgeting, and implementing the goals. And I'll also like to mention that today no one is hungry in this country. So it is that we are providing nutritious, because coarse grains are also part of the food which is given to those who are below poverty line. It's also subsidizing electricity. So there are so many things that have been taken into consideration so that those who have nots, they also have access to or dignified life they are able to lead today.
Certainly, you're right. So even on the 17 goals front, if we are not on track, there are some on which we are much ahead of that time limit that we have set for ourselves. In some areas, there are certain challenges about which we will discuss in due course of the program. But what's remarkable is that the focus back in 2015 was on reduction in poverty, on which India has done extremely well. The report that the NITI Aayog presented, it says about 248 million people have been lifted out of multi-dimensional poverty. We've spoken about some key drivers in this achievement. Going across to Mr. Todi now for his viewpoint on how India's journey has been. Dr. Dhawan did point out that India's experience compared to the other developing countries has been quite different given our population and given the different milestones that we have set for ourselves. But I think what's worked for us is that we have aligned the SDGs to our broader vision of Viksit Bharat by 2047. Mr. Todi, Mahindra Group, I found out that it's the first Indian conglomerate to have published a dedicated annual report on progress across all 17 SDGs. So if you could talk to us and our viewers about how this has changed the way the company thinks about its business strategy and what kind of impact has it had over the years?
Absolutely. Firstly, thank you for having me here. If I were to look to summarize the SDGs in one statement, it would be something along the lines of driving positive change in the lives of the communities. And that is very much the purpose statement of the Mahindra Group. So across multiple industries, and we operate in a variety of manufacturing as well as service sector businesses, driving positive change is the ultimate goal that we strive for. So across areas like affordable energy, across areas like zero hunger through improvements of technology in the farming sector, skilling, specifically green skilling, in areas like sustainable cities and built environment. We have been trying to bring the best of technologies from around the world and implementing them at scale across our multiple businesses. So generally speaking, we have as a country made significant progress, and especially given the kind of challenges that we deal with. So even at a country level, while the GDP continues to rise at a relatively high percentage, we have also shown that it's possible to develop without necessarily creating negative impacts on the environment. So both in the private sector as well as in the public sector, we now have multiple examples where business revenues and volumes continue to grow. And specifically, if I were to pick on energy as an example, the general consensus globally used to be that for any development to happen, you have to have high energy consumption. But at the same time, by focusing on energy efficiency as well as renewable energy, we have been able to show a negative correlation, like while your volumes can grow, your GDP can grow, but your emissions can actually go down. Similarly, across a number of other areas, there have been a number of industry firsts which have happened in India, just given the sheer size and scale with which we deal with. So when it comes to the area of food security in particular, we are a highly vulnerable nation when it comes to climate risk. And food security for a 1.4 billion population is extremely important. So the innovations that we have done for farmers, especially given that we don't necessarily have very large farmers, but a lot of small hold farmers, bringing the right kind of technology that is suited for the Indian environment, both through the right equipment, but also through the right agri inputs, through the right kind of technology such as drip irrigation, etc. If I go to the clean and affordable sector, focusing not just on one solar technology, but solar, wind, storage. There have been numerous examples of how technology has really accelerated our progress on SDGs. So a lot has been done, but at the same time, I would I have to say that a lot more needs to be done and at a more accelerated pace.
I'm curious to know from you, before we proceed to the other guests and begin the second round, Mr. Tori, with such a diverse portfolio from automotive to finance to also hospitality, how does the Mahindra Group ensure that each business unit that you have across the country, they internalize and prioritize SDGs rather than treating them as a compliance measure? Because usually we see that when such policy measures are to be taken by everyone along, it's more of a compliance measure. It's not treated as priority. How have you made that happen over the years?
No, absolutely. I think over the last few years in particular, we have specifically focused on how do we integrate climate action and sustainability as a core part of business strategy. So we put together this strategy called Being Planet Positive. It has broadly three key pillars. The first part is that how do you, in your own direct operations, ensure that there is no negative impact on the environment, right from emissions, water, waste, but also all the kind of materials that we use, how to use low emission material, recyclable material, recycled materials. So that's the first pillar, things which are in direct control of the company. The second pillar is that across the industries that we operate in, how do we create green products or green services? So the auto industry going towards EVs, the real estate industry talking about green homes, the entire renewable energy industry. There are multiple companies in that sector within the group. So sector by sector, how can we be enablers of green products or green services, and in some cases also a green enabler? So the finance sector helping finance solar solutions, helping finance EVs, developing the three-wheeler, four-wheeler ecosystem, etc. So that became a big part, which is what we call decarbonizing the sectors that we work in. Another big focus area is also to take the entire supply chain along, because across many of these areas, a single company cannot make this change. So it has to be supported by policy from the government. It has to be supported by the entire supply chain ecosystem. It has to also be the area where we don't compete with peers.
So we will definitely come and understand which policy measure has been the most effective. But since we are taking stock of the progress of the last decade, Mr. Meena, and I go back to that Voluntary National Review, which mentions how it's a whole of government and a whole of society approach that has brought India to the progress that we are talking about today. One, of course, was aligning the SDGs to our broader vision of 2047 Viksit Bharat goal. But tell us about how has NITI Aayog in the past decade worked with states, the union territories, the society in localizing the SDGs, because it cannot be a top-down approach. It has to be localized for effective results to be visible.
Thank you for the question. India's localization model is very unique and it's a decentralized model. And if you see, and we have followed for this whole of society and whole of government approach, because only central government or state government cannot achieve it. So all the three tiers of the government, national, state level, and the local government are involved in the localization. And at the same time, we have involved NGOs, think tanks, private sector, academia for providing the inputs for the Voluntary National Review. As far as whole of government approach is concerned, NITI Aayog itself has developed SDG India Index for measuring the progress at the sub-nation level, and further it has encouraged the state to develop their own state level indicator framework, district indicator level framework, and block level indicator framework, so that they can also themselves measure the progress of various schemes, various programs, policy measures in terms of the SDG, its impact in an index kind of format. So, because essentially we believe that what gets measured gets done. So this is the philosophy behind it. We have to measure everything.
Okay. Okay, that was the government's approach, but TERI has also been working with state governments, including in setting up the SDG coordination and acceleration centers, besides multiple other partnerships. Dr. Dhawan, how has this engagement and collaboration over the years helped accelerate SDG implementation at the local level?
Yeah, I must compliment the government for it because, see, the policies at the center, in a way, they dictate to some extent what the states should be doing. And in a way, it is also somewhere like I'll also talk in terms of climate change, because if we have to meet our SDGs target, we cannot divorce climate change from it, because we also have to look into what's going to happen in the future.
Absolutely.
And especially this year, what we have witnessed in our mountain region is that what kind of devastation can take place. And therefore, it is essential not only to meet the SDG goal today, we also have to worry about the future. When we look at it, it is also like the other challenges and what we are meeting very well, Viksit Bharat 2047, Made in India, and therefore our growth is very different from what has happened around the world, which was largely dependent on the fossil fuels. So to meet our SDGs also, we are looking at sustainability, we are looking at renewables in a big way. We are looking into ethanol production, biofuel production. We are looking into the renewable, and our target of 2030 actually has been met in 2025, so which is great. Now, that also tells us that, first of all, the growth can be sustainable and we can meet our targets. What India has done, we are talking about around 248 million individuals, they have escaped multidimensional poverty. Let's look at PM Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana that has ensured the nutritional support for millions. Poshan Abhiyan, Atmanirbhar Bharat, clean energy. And it's not just that we are looking into low-hanging fruits, we have set up National Hydrogen Mission, which basically is going to help us to meet the future demands, also exports and so on. Let's also look at PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana, which also is ensuring that there is transition to clean energy. So we are not saying energy excess, we are also looking at clean energy excess, which will meet the other objective of indoor air pollution, so that the women have access to clean energy and they will not suffer from indoor air pollution. Let's also look at the innovations that are happening in the country. And with renewable energy, let's also look at how the rural India will start activities in innovations. Because till today or till few years back, because there was no electricity, the farmer was he was forced to sell his produce, what he has produced today. But with availability of energy, they will be able to process it. They will be able to store their food. So it is going to become an engine of growth of rural India. And that is how we are going to meet our SDG targets. We are talking about, because see, midterm is that, okay, you ensure that they have food to eat. You ensure that they have access to healthcare. You ensure that they have some sort of insurance with them, life insurance as well. You are taking care of farmers' benefits and in all forms, and extending all possible help to them. So with all these are short term, where you are providing a sort of subsidy or free electricity and so on. But in years to come, the roadmap is carved on which you are ensuring that they will be able to do things for themselves. And not only for themselves, they'll add to the growth of the country. So that is what our roadmap is.
You're right. There have been steady improvements in key sectors that you've highlighted, but there are some where some bottlenecks persist, and perhaps we'll have to accelerate our efforts and push our efforts further in order to achieve the desired results in the next 5 years. Mr. Tori, I have two questions for you.
I can just add one more point.
Yes,
I'd like to add one more point.
Complete your point.
And that is, let's look at that South-South collaborations are going to play a very important role. We are no more a country where we say tech transfer, we are saying co-development of technologies.
Yes.
And it's very important for us that the technologies which have been developed in the West, most of them are suitable for large entrepreneurs. But we, being a country of small and medium enterprises, we have to carve our own research, our own way, and our research is much cheaper and at the same time more adaptive for Indian conditions or for our advice.
You're right, and that's another example of how we've aligned a global clarion call of leaving no one behind into our own policy of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, which is development not just for Indians but for everyone who has or who resides in the underdeveloped regions, and where development will take ages to reach. India will be the development partner. Taking forward the discussion, Mr. Tori, time allows me very much time to take concluding remarks, but based on what we've discussed, I would be happy to know from you about some of the policy support, public-private partnerships that have helped you further or sort of speed up your SDG goals. And now with just 5 years left for the SDG deadline, we're looking at the next 5 years. What are the top priorities for the Mahindra Group to accelerate delivery on these goals?
Absolutely. I think especially in the last 2 to 3 years, there have been a number of very supportive policies which have enabled multiple industries. To name a few, I think the discussion around climate taxonomy to enable green financing, the discussion around the India carbon markets, the GST protocols for certain industries, especially hard-to-abate sectors, the entire regime of extended producer responsibility, which was supported by NITI Aayog across end-of-life vehicles, batteries, etc. All of these have been very clear enablers to advance sustainability action, but also make it viable for businesses to invest in it, and as a result, create jobs, create the economy. A classic example of how environmental action and sustainability action go hand in hand with business priorities. That's one. In terms of going forward, I think some of the key areas of focus will continue to be deploying clean and affordable energy at scale, decarbonizing some of the hard-to-abate sectors, bringing all the benefits or all the positives of sustainable climate action from large corporates to the MSME ecosystem, and lastly, solving for food security, especially from an adaptation perspective and urban infrastructure perspective. So those are the 4 or 5 areas which would be the big focus area. That's what we are trying to build in our businesses, and generally in line with the priorities of the country as well.
Okay, Mr. Meena, let's now try and understand the challenges and some of the sectors which you perhaps would have earmarked where more efforts will be required in the next 5 years. We spoke about the notable gains right from poverty to the digital public infrastructure, something which is being endorsed globally. Progress on some SDGs, as we stated on the program earlier as well, they remain quite slow. So tell us about some of the areas that NITI Aayog has identified where we need to accelerate our efforts. Which are the biggest challenges between now and 2030?
Thank you. Though we have made some very substantial progress in certain areas, and their challenges and the opportunity for improvement are there. One of the most important challenges is the harnessing the demographic dividend that we are going to have soon.
Right.
Empowering our youth, their skill development, increasing in a women's participation in the workforce is one of the major challenges before us, and it provides a greater opportunity for the economic development. Urban infrastructure needs more development, more resilience, more robustness because of the migration that we are seeing in future going to happen from rural to urban areas. Other than the pressing issues like climate change and environmental pollutions that we have to tackle. These are some of the important priorities, and
so
government is...
We hope you've prepared a roadmap on how we need to accelerate efforts and put in more energy, and there should be collaboration from every stakeholder who will perhaps make the difference. But maybe we can discuss the roadmap some other time. Time allows me to take up only that much on this edition of Perspective. Thank you once again to all my guests for joining us with your views and inputs on the progress that we've made on SDGs, but specifically on where the challenges lie and what kind of efforts we need to make in the next 5 years to achieve the desired goals. That's it from us on this broadcast, viewers. Thank you very much for your time as well.
watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.